everyone, and welcome down to episode number 36, Keziah Pickett of the Down South Photo Show, with me, Brendan Waits, and my very good friend down in Hobart Town, who is still fiddling with his camera, but that's fine. Cameron Blake, good evening. It depends on people who are listening to this. It could be evening, could be morning, could be... Hi, Cam, how are you?
Good early afternoon, Brendan. How are you today?
Not bad at all, thank you.
I am stuffing around with my camera because I didn't charge my webcam camera today, and it's got 16% back on it. We've had a chat pre-recording to think, I don't think it's going to work. So I'm going off the webcam of the laptop, and I'm playing around with different lights, and I've got everything going on here. So
well, I'm just happy that it's not me having technical difficulties, and I shouldn't jinx it because it could happen yet.
It's amazing that you're in 16:9, 2 weeks in a row.
2 out of 3 weeks. We would like to apologize for having a week off last week. Things got a little bit out of control. We couldn't the planets couldn't align for us to get a time unless we wanted to record at 3 a.m, which neither of us did want to. So
I was happy to, but you aren't as committed to this show as I am, I don't think.
This is 100% true. And yeah, so we had to have a week off. Busy with camera and photo, and busy with life in general, I guess. There's just so much going on at the moment. A lot of catching up to do, but we will get hopefully into a bit more of a regular schedule, save for the fact that you're off on the Overland Track next week.
No. The schedule is going to be up that creek without a paddle, because I reckon we're going to have almost another week off, or we get really creative and do another recording before I go somewhere. Yes,
I think that is probably a good idea. So we might surprise everyone and still do an episode next week when Cam is nowhere to be seen, but that's okay. Yes, that's okay. Let's go with our backgrounds. You have you tell me and the listeners what you've got.
For those at home who can't see or in the car or on your podcast, I have a nice little picture of the Nonophagus. Nonophagus gunny is the fagus plant. Nonophagus. Is it gunny or gun? There's one of them. There's Cunningham eye and there's gun eye. Now, I totally stuffed this up, but I reckon we're
going to take your word for it.
We're going to have a word. Anyway, it's called fagus. It's a beautiful tree, and it's a little tree that grows high up in the alpine regions of Tassie, but it actually changes colour. It's Australia's only winter deciduous tree, so it's actually quite a unique tree. Only found in Tasmania, not found on any other speck of the earth, but it goes through this really amazing colour transformation as most autumn leaves do. But this one is a winter deciduous tree, so it finishes its cycle in winter, not in autumn. But these little branches behind us here and leaves here are only about the size of your little thumbnail or your little fingernail. They're tiny little leaves, but they've got these little crimple cut designs, and they've got these beautiful detail to them. So they're really popular. People travel from all over Australia, sometimes all over the world, to come and see the changing of the fagus. It's pretty cool. But it is the Nonophagus gunny, Gunnii. It's an amazing little creature of a plant. It's like a little rock crawler as well, but it just makes really cool photos. So this was taken up in the Mount Field National Park about a week ago.
Very cool.
And
I like it.
I feel like I'm parachuting out with your background.
Well, it's funny because we didn't coordinate this, but our backgrounds have got similar color palettes to them, and yet they couldn't be any more different. So
that's right.
I have got a bird's eye view of the Barwon Heads bridges, which is quite close to where I live, which is great. A very, very cool subject for me to go out and photograph. I'm forever
I like
further out there.
I like the splitting in half diagonal line there.
Yeah. And this was done in the absolute height of summer and at midday. So it was basically sun straight down. So it eliminated a lot of the shadows, as you can see.
Yeah.
And gave some nuts color in the water.
Yeah, the color in the water is incredible.
Yeah, it took all the glare and stuff off the water, so you could see the beautiful blue, clear. I mean, you'd think you're in the Whitsundays or somewhere, but you're here in sunny Victoria.
Here's a blast from the past for you. This is really random, as we do on this show. Yes. So did you ever have a Commodore 64?
I didn't, because we didn't have any money, but my mate did.
Right. So whoever had a Commodore 64 computer system, there was a game on that called BMX Bandit. Oh, and it used to be a bird's eye view, exactly like your thing. And this little guy would be riding his bike, wobbling his head, and you'd have to go around all these bushes. And it looked like that. You used to go bridges and rivers and stuff like that. So that's like a 4K version of what the Commodore 64 used to be. So,
wow.
But it's just cool how that bird's eye view gives you a completely different take on everything. It's
It's
incredible.
absolutely, with the drone, my favorite way to take photos, just looking straight down on stuff, because it's a clean and new perspective which has no horizon. So I kind of like that.
Yeah, I've never actually thought about that.
That's right. I'm probably going to cough a few times through this. I have a cold.
COVID.
It is not COVID. I have tested negative to a couple of rat tests. So, and I'm also drinking orange and carrot and ginger juice. So, trying to keep my energy levels up, because I have got a round of golf coming up. But anyway, that's another story. I'd like to talk a little bit. That's true. I'd like to talk a little bit about the Glyn Lavender interview that we had now going back 2 weeks ago. We got some really nice feedback through comments below and social media and stuff. I found it a really interesting interview. He's such an interesting guy, and his approach to photography, his self-deprecating nature for a start really comes through strong. He's a bloody good photographer. There's no question about that. And he is so modest. He just doesn't, I don't know. It's funny. The value that he puts on his images is completely different to what other people do. So
it was a great, and like I said, it's always great to catch up with Glyn. And like I said, you and I know him very well. But it's always funny to see, and having done that workshop with him in Cradle Mountain that time, he had some regular customers of his, and I had some regular customers of mine. And within the first hour or two of us being on this workshop, I had my customers going to me. He's like, is he always like this? Like, is this what he's like all the time?
Is this what he's going to be like for the next few days?
This is what he's going to be like for the weekend. And the rest of his customers are like, oh, this is just typical Glyn. This is what he's like. So he is, he's definitely a unique character in a very, very good way. And I must admit, I re-listened to that episode, because when we record these, you don't always take it in, like you're thinking of the next question, or sort of concentrate on things. And I went back and listened, and it was actually really beautiful to listen to about, like I said, how he sort of just talks down his output. It's more about the reason as to why, and the experience of getting the photo, and what that means to him, as opposed to getting any sort of accolades or comments or feedback on his images. And I thought that's, in this day and age where everything's about ego and likes and followers and all that kind of stuff, don't forget to like and subscribe our show. It was really nice, a beautiful change to hear someone who just like, I do it for the love of doing it. It's not for anything other than that. And I think that's a rare thing these days. So I thought that was a really good takeaway from that.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I enjoyed it. It was good. And as I say, the feedback's been so positive. Our interview shows are popular. The one with Ben Horn is now trending, is now sort of rating as one of our best, most listened to shows, which is cool.
Yeah, cool.
So we will keep the interviews coming. We have a guest lined up for next month. We are working on a guest for this month. So we will, we'll keep them coming. It's really, I think it's good, because it sort of, gives us a point of difference and something else we can talk about, and also hopefully introduces our listeners to some more good photography.
Yeah, I think that's right. And we might not get someone every month, but we're going to try to get someone every month. But I think it's good to see, and it's good for us as well, I think, to see how other people do it, and what angle they approach their photography from, and we always take something away from it. So I think if we're getting something out of our guests, conversations, and surely our listeners are as well. So but yeah, like Glyn's interview was great, and it was great to see all the comments below. And I got a funny feeling we'll have Glyn back on this show at some stage going forward.
Have absolutely no doubt. And it was quite hilarious. I listened to his podcast the next weekend, and the
Southern Photo Down show.
he had no idea what our podcast was called, and but I think it secretly came through that he enjoyed himself on the show. So that was good. And I know he's watching. G'day, Glyn.
He's not watching.
Now, in my show notes, Cam, there's I've bumped this up slightly higher. There was a special mention you wanted to talk about, some news about some Tasmanian fauna. Yeah,
absolutely. So I mentioned in passing, might have been the last episode, that there was something happening, that I'd been out on a trip down to the southwest, down to Melaleuca, on my southwest camp trip with some customers. And while we were down there, we just happened to coincide, nothing to do with the genius of me organising the trip at the right time, completely nothing to do with me. But we just happened to be down there when the Orangebellied Parrots were starting to migrate. They actually migrate back up to Victoria, your way, I believe, Brendan. But what they do, they hang around Melaleuca. There's lots of these hooches and things made up for them, and little benches and all these little special places for them to hang around. But we landed in this plane, and the one of our guides said, let's just go see if the parrots are flying around and see if we can get 1 or 2 shots of one, and you might be lucky. So we walked over about, a couple hundred meters away from the airstrip, maybe 400 meters, and there in this tree, probably about 20% of the world's population of orange-bellied parrots, just sitting there, just chilling out in their natural environment, not on any man-made objects. And we all had our cameras ready. So we actually got a handful of really amazing shots. So there's around about 60 odd of these birds left in the wild. They're on the critically endangered list of animals. And we saw close to 20 of them in this one tree, which is just mind-blowing. So we all got photos of these. And I put out there, and I approached Australian Geographic online and said, hey, we've just captured some pretty amazing shots of these critically endangered animals. Is there a chance you want to share this with your audience? And they've actually just shared it this week on their social media platform. I think they're going to put a little article in one of the episodes, or one of the editions of the magazine.
Put a link below if people want.
We will put a link below.
Social media sharing of that.
Yeah, and if Brendan's got the capability, we might chuck up a couple of shots of what we got. But it was just amazing to see. If you think about it, there's 60 of these animals, maybe 75 or 70, 60, whatever it might be in the world. And we had a vast majority of them sitting in a tree in front of us, just waiting to be photographed. So we started off the workshop like that. And we also got some of them on the way back through the airstrip area as well. But yeah, it was just really cool. And I thought it's a good feel-good story. They're actually increasing in numbers. They're migrating. They've come back with more numbers this year. And so that their program and the volunteers that do a great job about trying to increase their numbers is working. Mm-hmm. And now we've got the photographic evidence to see that they are healthy and in full flight, pun intended.
And how coincidental is it that only 2 years ago they were here in Ocean Grove?
Yes.
So and this is actually a known passageway on their migration is through Ocean Grove, which is also very cool. So hopefully I'll get an opportunity to have a crack at them myself at some point. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, and they are one thing. Like I've been down to the Melaleuca a few times, and I've seen a couple of them fly across. Someone goes, "I think there's one." I'm like, "What? What was that?" Is that so they're really, really flighty and quick, and they don't stand still for very long. But they literally just flew in a flock and just landed in this tree and just sat there for 10, 15 minutes.
They knew you were coming, mate.
Well, and we all had our big, telephoto lenses on that we were going to use for shooting sea eagles and things later on. And we all just sat there and snap. And the guides are like, I don't know what to say. I've never seen this before. I've never seen so many in one spot before. So yeah, a really good feel-good story. And like I said,
they would have said our job here is done.
They were pretty happy about it. And all the customers that I had were all like, oh, so you see these all the time? I'm like, no, no. So even one of my customers today, I think I put up a photo of about 10 in there, and she's like, but I saw 15 of them. I've got a photo of 15. So it's almost like this trade-off about how many we saw. But just a lovely thing to see. In a complex and crazy world we live in, it was just lovely to see that this critically endangered animal is actually coming back strong. So
yeah, I think I get this. I've got this right, that the numbers are actually building again.
Yes, they are. Yeah,
which is incredible to think that you just said there's 70, 80 of them now.
Yeah,
and they've built. So there was bloody hell. It would have they would have talk about critically endangered.
Yeah. Well, one of the guides, like we were sitting there, and we all had our cameras out, and then there was like I said, there's probably about 15 or so on the tree. And I knew in the back of my head the numbers, roughly how many there were in the world. And I turned around to Callum, who was our guide, and I'm looking at him and he's looking at me, and we're both doing the maths in our head. It's like, is that 20% or 60%? And then he's like, that's about 20% of the world population right there. We're like, holy shit.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
And everyone's just got their cameras up, snap. And it was incredible. And then they flew around, and it was beautiful to watch. But so yeah, I thought, it's a really good thing, especially with landscape photography, always be ready. We were not expecting to see them down there. We maybe tried to see one or two. We went down there for a completely different reason. So if you're going to a location to shoot and you may not have been there before, make sure you do some good research about what else is there. And you might get lucky. You might get the black panther out the back of Victoria that's hanging around.
Bonus hot tip for you: do a bit of research on your area, particularly when it comes to wildlife, because you just never know.
No, that's right. You don't. So yeah, that's my feel good story for the episode right there.
So that's your feel good story. It's all about Cam this week on the Down South Photo Show. You had a little issue as well this week.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah, no, I have had an issue. Totally had an issue. I lost a bit of camera equipment on this week, and this photo that's my background is the very, very last photo taken on my nice 90mm lens with a macro adapter on it. So when I was taking this photo, I had funnily enough, my daughter's name is Autumn, hence the season. She was out there with me. We had a father-daughter day out taking some photos and she had a little iPad and a little camera she was taking photos with. And we do this photo, took the photo. I'm like, yep. She's like, Dad, can we go? Let's go. I said, yep, let's get moving. Packed up all my equipment, got back in the car, drove down this mountain. We stopped on the way a few times, got an ice cream on the way home. I get home, unpack the gear, and I'm like, where the hell is that 90mm lens? I've got the macro adapter for it. So where's the lens? I'm like, God, I've left it up there. This is, we're 1,100 meters above sea level in the Alpine region. I'm like, oh God. And back in my head, I'm like, well, that's not a bad thing because not many people go where this spot is. So it's not a very popular spot to visit. So I went back up the next day and I went up again. I've been up 3 or 4 times this week and completely retraced my steps. It's about an hour from Hobart. I've spent a lot of time in my car. I can't find it. It's disappeared, or I've either left it somewhere and someone's picked it up. The park rangers haven't seen it. The police haven't seen it. It's not on eBay. It's not on Marketplace. It's not anywhere. So it's either fell down a little nook and cranny. It's not a big lens, but yes. So this photo behind me may be invaluable. It may be the very last photo taken on that lens.
It's a lovely, lovely lens, and it's a shame to lose it. But
it is. So
these are the perils of being the landscape photographer.
So the lesson out of that, there's a couple of lessons out of this one. Here's some other hot tips.
Yes.
One, don't lose stuff. Make sure you just double check and make sure you've got everything. And I'm usually meticulous with packing up my gear and making sure I've got everything. And I usually know where everything is, but I just got distracted maybe on this one. And 2, make sure your gear is insured. And make sure it's not insured just for your house. A lot of household insurances will allow you to insure outside your boundaries of your house. I run a business and we've got to have business insurance and public liability insurance. So that's all covered under that. So I'll get my money, so to speak, back for this lens and be able to replace it. But there'd be nothing worse than losing a valuable lens and not having it insured. So there, and it's not expensive to insure your gear. And I believe some house and contents, you can actually extend that to being outside of your house or off your property. It's a small peace of mind for what could easily happen.
So if you are at Mountfield, is that where you were?
Mountfield National Park.
If you're in Mountfield National Park and you find a 90mm macro Olympus lens,
no, it's
not
Cameron's. It's not an Olympus lens.
Oh, sorry. What lens was it?
It's a Leica lens.
Oh, sorry.
Which makes it even
story.
It makes it even more.
You lost a Leica lens?
Yep.
I thought it was your 90mm Olympus. My goodness.
No.
So this thing's worth a bit of money.
Yeah, it's about a $3,500 lens.
Hence the multiple trips back to go. If you found this lens, there's a reward on offer.
if you find this lens, and it is, I've lost it somewhere at Mountfield, around the Lake Fenton region. Okay. One down. If you find that lens, I will personally give you a signed, framed 16x20 photo of behind me. I'll give you one of the photos in there, but you have to give me the lens back.
I'm on my way.
Anyway, so that was a crappy start to the end of the weekend. But you know what? Like I've been thinking about it. I've been racking my brain, and I'm one of those people that just can't stop until I figure something out.
Yeah. And
even Autumn, my daughter, is like, Dad, I'm pretty sure you had it here, and we're working together and trying to solve the mystery. But I'm not that disappointed about the lens, and the reason I'm not is because I went out with her and we had a really good time. We saw some fungi, we saw some fagus, we saw some beautiful gum trees, we saw some beautiful autumn poplars on the way home through the Derwent Valley. We had a really lovely day. So, for the sake of losing a $3,000 lens versus spending an entire day with my daughter doing what I love and, showing her what I love, it's not a big loss.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So. Material goods, mate. Now, as normal, we just segue beautifully on the Down South Photo Show. Our main topic for discussion this week is we want to encourage kids to get into photography. We
do.
want to talk about encouraging kids to get into photography. And Cam and I are both quite experienced because we're both photographers and we both have kids.
We are qualified for this topic.
We are. I've often thought about running kids-only workshops, particularly. The other reason we're talking about this now is, of course, it's school holidays. And I know we're going to have some mums and dads listening who might be wanting to sort out something for their kids to do. Scratching at the walls by day 3. What do I do? Yeah, and I'm going to start with what Cam brought up already, and that is there's no shame in gear. Use whatever camera you've got available. And if that is an iPad, if that is an iPhone, then or a Samsung or whatever, if it's any digital camera whatsoever, encourage your kids to get out. And I reckon a very, very good place to start, and we're all been familiar with this over the last couple of years, is your very backyard. Because it's full of interestingness through the lens that kids probably take for granted throughout the day, or when they're playing in the backyard or whatever. Everyone's got a garden, everyone's got plants. I mean, it could be weeds, whatever. You're going to find really cool things to photograph, and you will find your kids pay more attention to their surroundings when they've got a camera in their hands and they're actually looking for things to photograph. I find with my kids, so my daughter Abby in particular, she got into it quite early, so like around 6 or 7. Partially because I think there was a bit of dad really likes this, so if I really like this, dad will really like me. It's that sort of stuff, trying to please the old man a little bit. But she actually got quite into it, and she's a keen little photographer now. Takes a camera with her everywhere she goes.
I remember there was a picture or a video you put up many years ago now, probably down at the 12 Apostles, was it?
I know what you're going to say.
And
it was.
Abby's like, "How good's this light?"
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you know awesome. What? I'm going to cut that video into this right now.
Yeah.
Gee, that light is getting so good.
What's that?
The light is getting so good.
Right.
Yeah. No, you won't.
There you go. No, I did.
I did. I wasn't there.
See, it was there. It happened.
Amazing. Incredible.
So, and it's so cute because she just mimics me, she at that stage. And I think, she would have been all of 7 or 8 in that video.
Yeah.
So that was very cool.
Yeah. I think you're right. And I think also like one of the things that I love about going out with my kids, and Autumn's sort of got into it a little bit. I gave her a little camera to take on her school camp, and she came back with some really nice shots. Funnily enough, out at Mount Field, they went for their school camp. She came back with waterfall shots and little intricate detail shots. But the thing I love about teaching kids about it, like you said, it's a good way to distract them with a good thing. It's not video games, or it's not sitting there watching movies or playing their iPad. It's getting out and getting them to sort of actually study their surroundings and look about what's going on. But the thing I love about it is what people say to me all the time is like, geez, you've got, your way of life must be awesome because you just see everything so beautifully in landscapes, like the way you see things, the way you see light. But people just not everyone sees that. But if you can start teaching your kids to see light and see these amazing things in our own backyard and nature, that's only going to enrich your kids' experience of life in general. And, we've spoken about mental health issues and how photography can help that. You might be setting up an incredible platform for your kids to have something to go back to. If times get tough or they have a bad stint at school, or they have an issue, or there's family problems or whatever it is, it might be the perfect escape for one of your kids to grab their camera, go out in the backyard, or go for a walk to the park and, try and replace the bad things in their brain with the good visions that we get when we take photos.
Absolutely. And I think it's important as well. You don't just, go grab your camera, go into the backyard. The idea here is that you're spending quality time with them and showing them, pointing out to them different things that they can photograph. And maybe they didn't actually realize that was a thing, like they could even do that. So, it doesn't have to be, a photo of an animal, or it doesn't have to be an amazing sunset, or it can be, as I say, the tiniest, most minute detail in your backyard. The iPhone 13 has got an incredible macro lens on it.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
You can focus down to like nothing. We've had quite often, we have bees in our backyard. We have some little lavender bushes, and I have a great time there mucking around with the bees, and my kids come out quite often and, and they check it all out. And but as I say, it's important to spend that time with them. Then you get that interaction, but at the end you're going to have some nice photos. So there's always something comes out.
And I think, you're right. And like even the photo behind me when Autumn was there, she was getting a little bit impatient because I've been there for about 45 minutes trying to do a few shots. But I took this photo and I actually showed her on the back of the camera, and I zoomed in to on the back of this red leaf here. There's all these fine little sort of fabric, like entwined, all these little bits of sort of fabric material. It almost looks like cotton or something like that. And she's like, oh, wow, like, how do you see, how come I can't see that with my eye, but I can see it on your camera? So we had a bit of a chat about the macro lens and what the macro lens is doing, like a microscope type of thing. And all of a sudden she's like, oh, what about this? What about if we photograph that? What will we see on this tree, or what will we see on this bark here? And so you could just see her mind just opened up. It's like, okay, what possibilities do I have with a camera to see things I don't normally see?
Yeah, and I've found as well, even so everyone's probably going to have an older compact camera in a drawer somewhere, like an old Canon Ixus or a PowerShot, or the old Nikon Coolpix or an Olympus Tough camera or something like that. All of them were outstanding at macro. Because you didn't use the zoom, you literally got the lens close to your subject. And once you show kids that, and they start using it, as you say, like a microscope, and they'll get up close to ants or spiders, or they'll find the flowers or the bees and all that sort of stuff. It really opens their mind up to the world around them, but also to photography in the broader sense as well.
It does. And I did something else the other day with my kids. We did some little portraits. I think it might have been when they started this year of school. So, you take a photo of your kids at the start of school. And I thought, as I was taking these photos of them, they were trying to look all proper and, neat and smiley. And I'm like, okay, that's life. Let's do some silly faces and stuff like that. And straight away, when we did these photos, I showed them on the back of the camera, and they're having a laugh, they're giggling, having a great time. And I think it was really important, because I've noticed now with Autumn, who's my eldest, she's getting to an age where, girls are starting to talk about, what they look like, and, putting their hair up and doing all those things that, that girls do at that age. But I've already noticed that she seems to be not so much concerned about what she looks like, or she's not worried that, she's not smiling like this, or she's pulling a funny face with that. I think there's a great lesson there, that especially with young girls as well, if you've got them, get them to be funny in front of the camera, and sort of not take themselves too seriously in front of the camera. I think that'll actually work in a benefit later on, where they don't seem to worry about what they look like to everyone else, as long as they're happy and having fun, which is all you want your kids to do. And we do it all the time. They get their iPads out and they're always doing silly faces and sending it to my mum on Facebook or whatever. And, there's none of this posing or none of this sort of looking like a Barbie doll type of thing. It's all natural, candid, having fun as a kid, as you should. And I think that's one way you can always encourage your kids to, let's do some portrait shots of mummy and daddy and be silly.
Yeah, and it's funny because it sort of brings to light a little bit about, like, when I do photography workshops, in particular my entry-level workshop, it sort of taught me that I'm sort of doing it arse about a little bit, insofar as I get people to come into a workshop, like a classroom environment, if you like.
Yeah. And
we start layering the way your camera operates, the physics behind photography and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Whereas with a kid, they don't care about that stuff, and nor do they need to know about that stuff.
That's right. Yeah.
Straight away, you're showing them composition immediately.
Yeah.
You're showing that, like, so my son, we've got a couple of chickens, and my son's hilarious. He loves them. And the other day he had my massive, I've got a 150 to 600 zoom lens, and he was zooming right in on the chickens, and I was showing him how to use the autofocus on the camera.
Yeah.
And he kept taking photos, and he said, these aren't as good as your photos, Dad. And I said, well, what do you think we can do to improve it? And he's sort of racking his brain. I said, here, try this. Try putting your subject not in the middle.
Yeah.
So just the classic, a real simple, the rule of thirds. Put your subject off onto one side. Yeah. And he did that, and his eyes lit up. Like, he was you could see he was like, Dad, why is that a better photo? And you know what? I couldn't actually give him an honest answer. I don't actually know why it works.
Yeah.
And I think it's got to do with our relationship with negative space and things like that in a photo. And we could get right into if we wanted to, but it was cool that you could see the penny drop, and you could see that actually, no, that actually looks a lot better.
My dad's a genius.
He doesn't think that. This little kid, he's 13. He beats me at chess every second night. It's doing my head in. Anyway, that's another story.
Is that before or after he gets off his Hugh Hefner couch?
Oh my goodness, yeah. So school holidays, and he likes just lazing around. But he's a 13-year-old boy. What are you going to do?
Exactly. Well, it's funny you say that as well. Like, I think, encouraging kids to get into photography is an amazing thing. And I've been shooting for 20 odd years. You've been shooting probably just as much, if not longer. 150 years. I wasn't going to say it, but I can guarantee the people out there that are listening that if you get your camera out and go out to your backyard or out to your local park, or go for a walk through your local nature reserve, and let your kid play around with the camera and have a bit of a chat like we've been talking about, I'm guaranteeing you that you will learn just as much from what they do with the camera as what you show them. Because I've taken my daughter out and she's taken photos with the little camera I've given her, and they just see things. They see things that, it's almost like what we say about, hey, don't forget to put your tripod up higher or down lower. Well, your kid's already down lower because they're generally smaller than you. They see things at the 4 foot level, not the 6 foot level or 5 foot, something like me. So, don't think of it as just a one-way thing where, I'm just going to teach my kid how to take photos and really have a good time with them. Make it interactive between the two of you, because, even set some little challenges like, okay, for the next 5 minutes, I want you to go shoot X, Y, and Z, and I'll go shoot X, Y, and Z, and we'll compare what photos we have at the end. Like, you can really make some nice little games out of it. And guarantee you they'll teach you something about what to look for, just as much as you will them.
Yeah. During lockdown, one of our school, the kids' school, one of their projects was photography. They were encouraging their kids to take some photos. So we stayed within our 5 kilometre radius, but we went out to the Barwon Heads Bridge right behind me. In fact, we went to that very spot just off to the side of the bridge there at sunset.
Yeah. Beautiful.
And got an absolutely gorgeous sunset. And there was the appreciation for the photography from my daughter, sure, but there was also this, because I've seen a million sunsets, I sort of knew what was coming. You can look at the cloud height, and you can say, okay, well, we're going to get some color out of this, or we're not. And and I said to my daughter, I said, oh, this will be really colorful, Abby. And within sort of a few minutes, you could see she was getting impatient and way, I said, well, this is the thing. You've got to, it's all about the patience now. You've got to let the light come to you. Yeah. And we got into it was like a really good conversation about, the physics behind it. And okay, so the clouds are this high, so they're going to reflect this sort of color, and this is where the sun's going, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. And
lo and behold, the sky just lit up with this gorgeous sunset. And, she just had at that point, I think she was just shooting with an old Panasonic Lumix of mine, like a travel zoom camera. Yeah. That had the panoramic format, panoramic mode on it. Where you literally push the button and point it across, again, it was one of the really nice moments where, she had an appreciation for the art of photography, but she, more than that, had appreciation for her surroundings. Yeah. And since then, you can see it. If we go camping or we go out anywhere, she communicates on a slightly different level, and probably interacts more with her environment. Yeah, I think. I'd like to think that the photography had played a big part in that. So, and now she's shooting film because all these, hipster teenagers love shooting film. And she's got a brand new appreciation for it because I make her pay for that processing. So
now, how do you like photography now?
Yeah, that's right. So
it's costing you a fortune.
She's still got her phone, but she gets that camera out and she loves the tactile nature of shooting film as well, even though she was never brought up with it.
Yeah, which is awesome. Yeah, we went out the other day. Actually, the day before we went out to Mount Field. Because they've been cooped up because we had COVID in our household and I was in the swag for a while. And so when they finally got out, I said to Lisa, you're still feel a bit under the weather. I'm going to take Autumn out. I won't take Jamison out because he might have it and we might spread it. But so Autumn and I went out on the Saturday, went out with a group of friends up to the east coast of Tassie. And there was a group of friends already going out, having a bit of fun, and sort of tag along bring the kid along, and went to a couple of waterfalls, had a great time. And, it was really nice. But what you were just saying there about Abby and noticing things on the way home was one of those things where we had to sort of get home and the color was changing really nicely. And for anyone that knows the Ben Lomond National Park, which is up near Launceston, there's a little southern end of that called the Southern Sisters, or the Southern Stack, I think it's called. And the light just lit up above this stack. It would have been a great photo, but we just kept driving. And Autumn was like, "Oh, look at the color, Dad. That's incredible." And then we started talking exactly about that. I'm like, well, the reason why the color is hitting the bottom of the clouds, if you look all the way up the end of that valley, you can see a little slither of where the sunlight's coming underneath there. She's like, "Oh, okay." And then all of a sudden the color went. She goes, "Oh, that didn't last very long, did it?" She goes, "But how do you get photos of that? If it only lasts for 30 seconds, how do you get photos of that?" And we had the exact same conversation. Well, you've got to get there. You've got to be prepared. You've got to wait for it. Sometimes it happens. Sometimes it doesn't. And she gave me a look as if to say, "Well, that's silly. Why would you just hang around if it's not going to happen?" But we had that beautiful conversation for half an hour as we're driving along. And
yeah, that's great.
You can't buy that kind of experience. That's the stuff you do when so you take your kids out.
No, that's right. And unlike most photographically inclined children, not everyone gets a chance to sit in their own, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of printing gear and sit there and print their own photos as well, like my daughter does every Saturday when she runs a shop for me.
That's great.
Yeah,
awesome.
She loves it. She gets in there and makes prints, and she's got a whole, like a wall on her, like in her bedroom, of 6x4s with a white border of all these photos that she's done.
Brilliant.
It just looks, it's really cool. There are a few other, like Tom Holland is in there, and
is that Spider-Man?
That's the one. He's the hot one at the moment, apparently.
He is a child still, isn't he? He doesn't look that old.
I don't know, but it's a smattering of other, like, singers and this kind of stuff. I don't know who's good these days.
I don't know. We're too old for that. Hey, just on what we're talking about as well. It's funny that you brought this up, because I've actually been approached by a teenager down here in Hobart who wants to actually get some lessons on how to take landscape photographs and learn how to use his camera. And I literally got this email about 2 days ago before we even thought about having this conversation.
Serendipity.
It is. So we've set up that he wants to do a session every fortnight for an hour after school. We'll try and squeeze it in where I can, and his mum's going to come along and supervise as well. That is one sort of disclaimer I will put out there as well. If you are going to do any working with kids, make sure you have a working with kids license, which I do.
Yes. Me too.
Make sure you have that license and make sure it's valid. But more than happy to teach kids the beautiful art of photography, and who knows, maybe mum might get her iPhone out and take a few shots as well. But it's a great topic, and hopefully we have enough listeners on this show who have kids or grandkids even. If you've got the grandkids for the holidays and you got your own old camera, or you got a camera at home, fill in a day, go out and take some photos somewhere. Yeah,
and don't be afraid to show them the ropes, as I say, on their iPad or their phone, or if you're going to loan them your phone or whatever. It doesn't have to be an SLR. It doesn't have to be a compact camera. Just a phone will be totally fine, because you can give them the all the pointers they need on any camera.
And I think also I've noticed that I noticed with my kids anyway, and I'm sure your kids are the same, is that they certainly do have an appreciation for camera equipment. Like, they can sort of understand that it's not cheap, and but I've got no problem giving either of my kids any of my cameras, regardless of how expensive they are, to go at the front, take a photo, or go at the back, or if we're walking somewhere, take a few photos in reach of where I am. And I've got full confidence that they'll, they won't muck around with it and stuff like that. So don't be afraid that they're going to just pick it up and throw it in the river or something like that. Unless you've got real bratty kids, then maybe photography is not for them.
It's funny though.
Maybe golf.
Well, I find if I give my kids my SLR gear, the first thing I do is put that strap around their neck.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah.
There you go. Yeah. And it's like, it's not like you're trying to make them look like a real photographer. So you're trying to save your gear, because that tiny bit of material saves you a lot of heartache.
It does, absolutely. So,
yeah, I mean, it doesn't. You don't have to be 9 years old to lose a $3,500 lens. So moving right along.
Right, yeah. Next topic.
It's Deer Cam.
After you've just thrown me under the bus.
Yeah,
sure.
It's Deer Cam. Hang on. Let me just get to the right spot here.
Yeah, make sure you read the right question.
Correct, because we've got a couple, but we're going to hold one over for next week. This is from listener Mel, who is an avid listener. G'day, Mel.
G'day, Mel.
He gets a shout out every second or third episode.
He's pretty much like a silent crew of this show. I actually spoke to Mel on the phone the other day. Lovely conversation with Mel, and
he's a gem of a man.
He's a gem of a man. So he's an avid listener, and
He'd be vying with a couple of others, but I reckon he'd be pretty close to our number one ticket holder. So
he's got to be in the top 3.
Something. Okay, we'll be in top 3.
We've only got 3 followers, but he's in the
True,
top 3.
and that's you and me and Mel.
him.
So
So really, we're not, what's the point of doing this show? Anyway, what's Mel got?
Dear Cam, how do you approach the problem of having to leave photographic equipment in a hot car? It's rarely possible or practical to carry everything with you. True. And there are times, of course, when you're out of the car for a meal break, etc. You don't really want to carry anything at all. Cameron, how would you answer that?
Well, I live in Tassie. We don't have that problem.
True. Okay. So if you've got a Dear Cam question.
No, that is something that you do come across, especially when you're traveling around or going back, having lived in Victoria and spent a lot of time in hot regions. Look, cameras have a temperature rating they can work to. Most of them work up to around about sort of 50 or 60 degrees, I think, Celsius or something like that. If I ever have to leave camera gear in a car, I certainly don't leave it in exposed places. One, because of security reasons, that people might just break your window and steal your camera gear. If anything, I try and leave it in the boot, right at the very back of the boot, covered up where it's going to be probably the coolest. Or I leave it under a seat, or I leave it somewhere where at least it's going to stay out of the sun if you can. Depending on how long you're going out of the car for. Look, you can have little boxes in the back of your boot, like little, like little tubs that maybe keep things a bit cooler as well. But if I am going to go out of the car and I have to leave some gear there, I generally try and not leave the actual camera body. I'll take the camera body with me and leave the lenses. Sometimes I leave lenses in the middle of nowhere as well, but I would try and take everything if you can. But if you can't take everything, try and at least take the camera itself. And I think also for the reason that the camera has a battery in it as well. So if the battery overheats, and that can cause some real issues if you had some internal battery explosions.
Yes.
But it's a tricky one. But yeah, I think in the boot, maybe give yourself like a little dedicated little tub to put in your car that will keep things a bit cooler. But certainly don't leave it on the dash or the back parcel shelf or on the front seat. It'll just cook, and it may cost you some money if someone breaks into the car.
So this is my camera bag, for those of you who can't see. It's a camera bag that happened right beside me, so I grabbed it. The good thing about the higher end camera bags, and the reason you generally pay more money for them, is because they're not only very well padded, they are also insulated. So if you have a look in here, you can see that's actually got quite a bit of insulation in there as well.
Yes.
And I've never tested it, but I reckon if you put like a thermometer in here and you put it in your hot car to see I reckon you get a lot more protection by leaving your camera gear in a bag.
Yeah,
now I know what Mel was saying, because that might be the bag that you want to take with.
Yeah.
So companies like Lowepro, I know, actually make small little insulated carry bags that fit inside the bigger backpack system.
Yeah.
So getting some of them for your lenses might be really helpful as well.
Yeah. You could probably even get away, those insulated shopping bags that you put all your meat and stuff in.
Yeah,
you
could probably the silver lined ones.
Yeah, you could probably leave one of them in the back of your car and just say, I'll just put stuff in there, and that should keep it cool.
One great thing about this backpack, I used to sell this backpack so often because I owned it. So I was able to, this is where back in the camera house days.
Are we sponsored by Lowepro?
Sure. Hi, Lowepro. Come and sponsor the Down South Photo Show. We talk about your gear enough.
Not the Southern Photo Down Show, but the Down South Photo Show.
The reason I know that these are very well insulated is just, I don't know how I know this, but a 6-pack fits exactly in the top of this bag.
How would you know that? That's amazing.
And it's kept pretty cool. I've had a 6-pack in there in summer, no ice in there, and it kept it nice and cool. So if it can keep things cool, it must be able to keep the heat out.
Mind you, I reckon you'd drink warm beer if you had to.
So if you've got a question for Dear Cam, please send us a link, send us a message below, or all the socials and all that sort of cool stuff.
Yeah.
We like the Dear Cam. It's good. We haven't had any photography horror stories for a while. I'd like them to make a little comeback as well. I think that's well,
with the advice we just gave Mel, maybe the next one will be, I've left my camera in the car and
photography horror story. That's right. I mean, hopefully not. And I'm sure that if people think about it, they could come up with their own photography horror story.
Yeah, absolutely.
getting close to the end of the pod. Cam, what is coming up for you? You're not going to be available next week, so we're going to try and work out if we can do another episode, which we will, because it's Easter.
I don't think you'll be able to find time, Brendan, to be honest.
I am having a few days off, actually. So.
Okay. Well, we can figure it out. What have I got going? So this weekend, I'm doing an OM Digital, the artist formerly known as Olympus. Yes. We're doing a day out to Mount Field. Seems to be getting a lot of mentions in this episode.
It's getting a good plugging on this episode.
It's getting a massive plugging. The Mount Field National Park and also the Southwest National Park, which is a bit further down the road. We're going out there with all the gear. We've got the new OM1. We've got all the nice pro lenses, apart from the really big, expensive one. So we've got all that kind of jazz. We've got about 5 or 6 people coming for the day. We'll go out there, have a good time. Photograph some waterfalls, some forests. We'll probably go photograph this exact Fagus tree if it's still there. Have another look for my lens while I'm there.
Yeah,
and
this could be hard. It'd be like an Easter egg hunt, but it's actually for something a bit more expensive.
It is, and I'll have a search party of 6. I'm sure they will find it. So we're doing that, and then literally the next day I head up to Cradle Mountain to prepare ourselves to walk the Overland Track starting next Monday.
Wow. So how long is the Overland Track walk going to take you?
6 days, 65 kilometers. So we're back on Saturday, 23rd. The weather's looking like we might get a little bit of rain, but hopefully we might miss a bit as well. So, but
the weather's looking amazing for Easter weekend here in Victoria.
Yeah, the same here,
incredible.
But it's going to change a little bit where we are.
Yep.
But the beautiful thing about the Overland Track at the moment is we're walking in peak autumn time. So all these trees behind us, the Fagus trees, the myrtle trees, the pandani trees, the snow gums, they just look fantastic this time of year. So it's a really, really, really pretty time to walk the track. So even if it's pouring rain, the colours just stands out. You get this beautiful fog and stuff like that. So looking forward to that. I have done no training whatsoever for this 65K walk. I'm going in cold turkey. And
what could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly? I'll probably lose another lens or I might lose a hamstring or something. So yeah, when I get back, we can have a bit of a chat about that walk. And
yeah, for sure, that'd be great.
Yeah, it's a beautiful walk, and only doing a couple of them a year these days. I've sort of backed off a bit. I used to do sort of 3 or 4, sometimes more a year, but yeah, just trying to squeeze it all in the schedule. So yeah, and I gather you said you're taking a few days off.
When I say a few days off from the shop, I will still be hard at work. I've got so when I produce canvases for people, I don't do what's called canvas stretching. I don't do that at the shop. I do it here, right behind me, not on that bridge, but actually in my shed here that's behind that picture. So I've got quite a few to catch up on. There's been a shortage of materials and I've finally got all that in. So, but I will be out of the shop, and I am hoping over the next sort of week or so to get to somewhere with autumn colors. We've got plenty of options very close by. We've got Ballarat, which is quite good for autumn colors around Lake Wendouree. So I'm going to head there. Daylesford is on top of the list. So there's a lake there called Jubilee Lake.
Yes,
which is quite famous for its autumn colours. So I'm hoping I might be able to get a night out in the swag. So I'm up there to shoot the sunrise, sleep in the back of the van for a night, and actually do something I've wanted to do for ages now, like literally 3 years now, is photograph some autumn colours again, because the last time I did it was 2018 in Bright. So
you're the only landscape photographer I know that doesn't take any landscape photographs.
Correct. That's right. I've actually toyed with the idea, and you'll laugh. I've toyed with the idea of actually deleting my entire back catalogue, like just getting rid of it.
Even the Jesus Roo?
No. There's some things that you just can't. No.
Yes.
Just to make me go out and take more photos. I know that sounds really drastic.
Why don't you put them on a hard drive and then send them to me, and I'll keep them down here so you can't see them.
I don't know. Maybe I can say, okay, this is the last one I'll ever sell. I might keep them still, but I won't put them up.
It's an interesting topic you say there about back catalogues, and I've had this conversation with Tom Putt. World famous. Well, he'll tell you he's world famous.
Avid listener.
No, he's not. He would not be listening to this because his ego could not fit in our little podcast.
Oh no.
We might have to have him on the show. Maybe.
Hi, Tom. Never met you, but you seem like a lovely guy.
He's not. He's a douche. He's fine. Okay. So anyway, he lives in Mornington. But I had a chat with him at the BFOP festival a couple of years ago, and we had the exact same conversation about, we've got thousands of these photos. What are we doing with them? Like, what's the point? And we both said at one stage, pretty sure we both said that, we should just start again. Just go back and revisit all these spots and just try and recapture them again. Probably going to get them better than what we did last time. But I would challenge you as well to say that you're never going to get a kangaroo jumping across a lake ever again.
No.
So there's some things that you cannot replicate or go back and try and improve. Some things are just moments in time you can't do anything about. So
no, that's right. I just think I almost need that kind of kick in the butt to for something like drastic to happen to get me, because I am so tied up in the business side of things, which is great, and I'm very appreciative that I get to make my living in the world of photography. That's pretty cool. But there's only so many photos of grandma's dead cat that you can print before you go mental. So I got to get back out there, and I love photographing in the winter.
Just curious, what paper do you use to print grandma's dead cat? Is there a special gloss or matte? Or?
Yes, I've got the dead cat paper. Here you go.
If you love winter, why don't you get your ass on the boat and come down here for a long weekend?
Yes,
and I will take you places.
A long weekend. All right, let's make it happen. We'll talk off there about this.
Don't worry about the boat.
You said on the boat.
Well, don't worry about the boat. Just fly down. It's quicker.
Okay. Well, you've got a car. You can come and get me.
Yeah. I've got a four-wheel drive. We can go. I can get you lost anywhere.
All right, let's do it. We'll go. I've got a good feeling about your lens. I reckon it's going to turn up.
I haven't. I've looked absolutely everywhere. I've retraced my steps.
No, you haven't, because it's still out there, because you haven't found it. So you haven't looked everywhere.
I really have. Like I've looked down all these nooks and crannies. I've walked the track 5 times, and I've walked it at snail pace, looking everywhere. I think in the back of my head, I can even tell you what I had for lunch that day. I can tell you what I was wearing. Yeah. But I reckon when I got back to the car, I had it there in a little leather case. And I reckon I put that leather case on the back canopy of my car near the back door as I was doing stuff. Yeah. And a car rocked up who wanted to get in the spot. And I'm like, I better be polite and move out. But I've walked almost a kilometre up and down that road, looking in the gutters each way. I reckon someone's picked it up, maybe not knowing what it's about, and just chucked in the back of their car, and off they went. So
yeah, look, hopefully someone finds it. So we'll put the call out for Cam's Lost Lens, hashtag Cam's Lost Lens.
We're not doing a hashtag anymore, are we?
Well, we sort of let that slip, but that's okay.
Are we trying to do too much in an hour?
Sometimes, but that's okay. That's fine. Well, I mean, well, it's approaching an hour. Thanks, Cam, for your time tonight. Hopefully we get back in a bit more of a groove of doing these things. And again, our apologies for missing a week, but we enjoy doing it. So hopefully you enjoy listening. If you've got any questions, comments, like, subscribe, all that kind of cool stuff, do so in
Tell your friends as well. We're sitting on 253 subscribers.
A 250 subscriber milestone has been passed. That's
that's good.
No mean feat.
I'm getting a bit impatient. I want to see it get up to like 500.
Well, they say the first 1,000 is the hardest. So
everyone who listens, all our legendary listeners, all have people that they crap on about photography about, and they go, "Oh, if only there was a podcast we could listen to." Tell them about this one. Let them know about this podcast. Send them the link. Send them the podcast link. Send them the YouTube link.
Yeah, if you've got any workshop questions, if you've got any topic suggestions, by all means, hit us up. We'll happily talk about it. We want to make this as interactive as possible.
Yes.
Anyway. So thanks for listening to episode 36 of the Down South Photo Show. We will catch you guys
very soon.
Unless Cam's got anything else.
No, I think I'm done. You've got me depressed about my lens again.
Sorry.
In the back of my head, I'm thinking, did I check everywhere? Surely there's a spot.
No, there's somewhere. That lens is somewhere.
I don't know.
We will see you for episode 37 next week. Cheers, guys.
See you guys.
Bye.
I've got no idea where that lens is. It's gone.